In the Brooklyn neighborhood of New York City, on March 28, 1989, a fateful encounter took place involving Monique Rivera and her three sons, with the youngest being Andre Bryant. They were taking a leisurely walk when they crossed paths with two women in a striking vehicle, a 1988 or burgundy 1989 Pontiac Grand Am Sports Edition with tinted windows, possibly sporting Maryland license plates. One of these women was around 30 years old in 1989, an African-American of robust build with a dark complexion and sunglasses shielding her eyes. The other lady displayed a complexion of light or Hispanic origins, or perhaps African-American, and sported long red hair. She wore a red leather jacket along with white pants, and she was roughly 22 years old at the time. Both women stood at an estimated height of 5 feet 7 inches. Interestingly, Rivera might have known one of them from her middle school days. These two women struck up a conversation with Rivera, expressing an interest in her children and even asking to hold young Andre. Through persuasive charm, they managed to convince her to join them for a shopping excursion. At a store named Canadians, Rivera treated herself to a new outfit while her companions purchased her a pair of pants and a shirt. With their shopping completed, they returned Rivera to her home. Later, Rivera informed her husband, Timothy Bryant, that the women had used a fraudulent credit card for their shopping spree and that she planned to go shopping with them again the following day in White Plains, New York. Patricia, Timothy's sister, agreed to babysit the children while Rivera indulged in retail therapy. On March 29, Patricia arrived at Rivera's Madison Street apartment to look after the kids. However, on the appointed day, the two women failed to pick up Rivera from her apartment. Instead, they called her from a nearby pay phone, urging her to meet them outside. Strangely, they insisted that she bring young Andre along for the shopping trip. Rivera complied, taking her baby with her. At 2 p.m., she was last seen entering the women's vehicle outside her apartment. The morning of March 30 brought a grim discovery. Rivera's lifeless body was found in the woods near Eastchester Bay, close to City Island Road in the Bronx. She had suffered a blow to her head and had been strangled. Defensive wounds, such as bruises and broken fingernails, indicated a fierce struggle against her attacker. At the scene, there was no sign of Andre, Rivera's companions, or their vehicle. It took a few days for the police to confirm the identity of the victim, thanks to Timothy's newspaper appeal for information on her whereabouts. A few days following Rivera's murder, a mysterious woman identifying herself as Joan Walker phoned her apartment. She inquired about Rivera and, upon learning of her tragic fate, expressed disbelief. According to her, they had just gone shopping together a few days earlier. Curiously, this caller was never identified, and authorities could not establish any connection to the case involving Joan Walker. Andre, in the wake of his mother's death, vanished without a trace. The two women who had accompanied Rivera and her son on that shopping trip remained unidentified. She was just 25 years old when she lost her life, leaving behind her husband and two other sons besides Andre. Authorities suspect that Andre may have fallen victim to an adoption ring. At the time of his disappearance, they entertained the possibility of a connection with the vanishing of Shane Walker and Christopher Dansby, both of whom disappeared 3 months apart from the same Harlem Park in 1989. These missing children were all black. Unfortunately, none of these cases have seen resolution, and the fate of the children remains shrouded in mystery. Princess Perez was last seen at her family's residence on Webb Avenue in the Bronx, a borough of New York City, on June 15, 1996. Prior to Princess's disappearance, the New York Administration of Children's Services had been conducting an investigation into the Perez family home for several months. In December 1993, due to issues of neglect, Princess and her two older sisters were placed into foster care. They were returned to their parents in January 1996, but by April, allegations of child abuse emerged within the family. ACS workers documented injuries, including lacerations, on one of Princess's sisters. The last time ACS workers saw Princess was on June 15, when she was in the company of her father, Antonio Perez. In August, ACS officials returned to the Perez family's residence after receiving a report that Princess was missing. At that time, her mother, Karen Perez, informed them that Princess was living in California with Karen's mother. However, Karen claimed she didn't have the address. The ACS was unable to locate Princess, but Karen maintained her story that Princess was in California, and no further investigation was conducted at that time. Nevertheless, ACS did investigate allegations of abuse against Princess's sisters. In 1998, Antonio was imprisoned for driving while intoxicated. Just before his release, Karen confided in a relative that Antonio had killed Princess and disposed of her body. She stated that she and the other children were present when Princess died, and Princess's sisters had witnessed her lifeless body. The concerned relative contacted the police, who, in turn, alerted ACS, prompting an investigation into Princess's disappearance. Antonio informed authorities that Princess had become ill and passed away from natural causes in mid-June 1996. He claimed to have disposed of her body somewhere in New York City. Investigators found Antonio's explanation lacking, as he failed to provide a valid reason for not seeking medical assistance for Princess or reporting her death to authorities. In 1998, while serving the remainder of his DWI sentence, Antonio agreed to reveal Princess's whereabouts to law enforcement. Antonio led authorities to 3 locations: Woodlawn Cemetery in the Bronx, the West Side Highway in Manhattan, and an unidentified spot in Brooklyn. Regrettably, Princess was not found at any of these locations as specified by Antonio. Princess's older sisters told ACS officials that they had seen Princess lying motionless on the floor of their family's residence in June 1996, with blue lips. They claimed to have observed a garbage bag in the home, which appeared to contain a small body. However, Karen later retracted her statements about Antonio's involvement in Princess's death. In 1998, ACS officials removed the older Perez children from Karen's custody, placing them in foster care with no contact with their parents. Antonio was charged in family court that same year with abusing his older daughters by allegedly murdering Princess in 1996. He pleaded not guilty to the charges, maintaining that Princess had died of natural causes. No criminal charges have been filed against Antonio, and Princess remains missing, her whereabouts unknown. Cecilia Pena was a student at St. Alphonsus Commercial High School in Lower Manhattan, New York City, in 1976. Her family lived in the Bronx borough. Cecilia regularly used the subway for her daily commute to and from school. Her routine homeward journey began at the 149th Street station in Manhattan, where she boarded the number 2 train. She would travel 5 stops along the line, exiting at the Simpson Street station in the Bronx. From there, she took the number 5 bus to reach her family's residence. On October 6, 1976, Cecilia was last seen by her friends at the 149th Street station, somewhere between 3 o'clock and 4 p.m. Sadly, she never made it back home, and no one has heard from her since. Several days after Cecilia's initial disappearance, a witness came forward and shared crucial information with her family. This witness claimed to have seen Cecilia after her last reported sighting on October 6. According to the witness, Cecilia was on the corner of 163rd Street and Southern Boulevard, accompanied by a Bronx resident named Anthony Rudy Flores. At the time, Flores was holding Cecilia by her arm, and she appeared to be frightened. Remarkably, this location is less than half a mile from the Intervale Avenue station, which is 1 stop before Simpson Station, where Cecilia typically disembarked from the subway. If this sighting is accurate, it raises questions about whether Cecilia left the subway earlier than usual or if she encountered Flores after exiting at Simpson Station, and they were together for a significant distance without anyone noticing that something was amiss. Flores, however, denied any involvement in Cecilia's disappearance and claimed that he was not with her on the day she vanished. Additionally, he denied any connection to the case of 9-year-old Nalita Del Valle, who also disappeared in 1976, this time from Boston, Massachusetts. Despite being a suspect in both cases, no charges have been filed against him. There are unconfirmed reports that he is serving a 50-year sentence for 1, possibly 2, murders in New York. To this day, Cecilia has not been located, leaving her disappearance shrouded in mystery. On a sunny afternoon, June 25, 1985, young Jeremiah Huger was immersed in playing with his friends right outside his home on LaFontaine Avenue, nestled in the bustling borough of the Bronx, New York City. They found their playground behind his grandmother's third-floor apartment, which belonged to the Twin Parks housing project, situated in the 2100 block of LaFontaine Avenue. As the clock ticked towards 4:30 p.m., Jeremiah's mother kept a watchful eye on him through the window. Everything seemed ordinary as she and a male relative embarked on a shopping trip, assuming that Jeremiah would be safe and sound. Little did they know that this day would mark the beginning of a heart-wrenching mystery. Jeremiah's grandmother, his legal guardian, tried to get his attention, but her calls remained unanswered. She initially believed that Jeremiah had opted to accompany his mother on their shopping excursion. However, a grim reality unfolded upon their return. Jeremiah was nowhere to be found. Their frantic search commenced immediately. His playmates, who had shared the afternoon with Jeremiah, provided a vital piece of information that sent shivers down their spines. They recounted that Jeremiah had been playing in the sandbox, a scene of youthful innocence, when an African-American man, who seemed familiar with Jeremiah and even knew his name, appeared. With innocence and curiosity, Jeremiah approached the men. However, in a chilling turn of events, the men swiftly seized the young boy, and within moments, they both vanished into thin air. From that day forward, neither Jeremiah nor the mysterious men he encountered were ever seen again. The aftermath of Jeremiah's disappearance left indelible scars on his family. His parents, grappling with the unimaginable loss, spiraled into the abyss of drug addiction. In the face of adversity, Jeremiah's mother found the strength to embark on her path to recovery. Throughout her journey, one unwavering mission remained at the forefront: the tireless search for her beloved son. In the eyes of law enforcement, multiple theories surfaced. Authorities contemplated the unsettling possibility that Jeremiah may have been sold following his abduction. However, his mother clung to a different belief. She harbored the conviction that her son was taken by an abusive, jealous former boyfriend, a man who had once menacingly threatened to abduct the child. Regrettably, the mystery surrounding Jeremiah's disappearance continues to cast a long shadow. Sparse traces of evidence have provided no definitive answers. Through the years, this enigma has remained unsolved, and Jeremiah's family persists in their pursuit of closure and justice, holding on to the hope that one day, they will be reunited with their beloved son. Monique Santiago's story unfolds in Albany, New York, back in 1990, a year that would leave an indelible mark on her family. On that fateful day, March 29, Monique was a typical schoolgirl preparing to leave for her classes. The setting was their family apartment on Washington Avenue. At around 8 a.m., Monique set off for school. However, fate had other plans. She later called her mother, Annie Granila, at her workplace around noon. Monique explained that she had missed the school bus and would be spending the day at home. Little did anyone know, these would be the last words her family heard from her. As evening descended, Annie Granila returned home, expecting to find her daughter safe and sound. Tragically, this was not the case. Monique was nowhere to be found, and an agonizing void filled their home. The anguish of her unexplained absence cast a shadow over her family. In the midst of this harrowing situation, Annie Granila faced a difficult decision. She hesitated to report her daughter's disappearance to the police immediately, believing that law enforcement might only take action if a significant amount of time had elapsed. As a result, precious hours slipped away, and potential leads grew cold before the authorities were alerted. An acquaintance of Monique, an adult male, emerged as a person of interest in her case. He admitted to having driven her to the State University of New York's Albany campus just 5 days prior to her disappearance. It's worth noting that he lacked the necessary permission from Monique's mother for such an outing. According to his account, he encountered Monique in a parking lot on Central Avenue in Albany, across from a former Woolworth's department store. Out of concern for her well-being, he decided to buy her some snacks from the school cafeteria. However, a troubling detail emerged: he admitted to inappropriate behavior while she waited in line. This individual faced questioning by authorities within 48 hours of Monique's vanishing and provided a typewritten statement. Despite suspicions surrounding his involvement, a lack of concrete evidence prevented any charges from being filed. He staunchly maintained his innocence, asserting that certain portions of his statement had been fabricated by investigators. The circumstances surrounding Monique's relocation from New York City to Albany in the late 1980s added another layer of complexity to her case. The move was prompted by a murder that occurred in front of their former residence. Investigators explored the possibility that Monique may have witnessed the crime, making her a potential target. However, no evidence emerged to substantiate this theory. In the course of their investigation, the police also turned their attention to Monique's stepfather, who was incarcerated at the time of her disappearance. Authorities considered the possibility of an altercation with fellow inmates that might have led to Monique's abduction as a form of revenge. After thorough examination, investigators determined that her stepfather's prison sentence was unrelated to her vanishing. As the years unfolded, both Annie Granila and Monique's stepfather tragically succumbed to AIDS-related causes, leaving behind unanswered questions and a lingering sense of loss. Monique Santiago's disappearance remains a haunting mystery, a story marked by the possibility of foul play, and a family forever seeking closure in the face of uncertainty.